All right, let's return to an earlier story, one of our major stories this morning, that of the group of women activists who are on their way, currently in the sea, on their way, trying to get into Gaza. They want to break the siege that has been imposed by the Israeli authorities. We understand that the Israeli Navy is about to intercept that boat. Here in the studio with me is Sultan Barakat, who's director of the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies at the Doha Institute. Thank you very much for joining us. This is a good moment, isn't it, for us to look at the conditions of the siege upon Gaza and how the nearly 2 million people managed to live despite that.
Well, the conditions are absolutely terrible, and this siege has been going on since 2007. It includes everything. The underlying principle behind it is Israel's security and Israel's argument that they need to have the siege in order to ensure that materials that can be used for weapons and for constructing tunnels, reinforcement and so on, are not allowed into Gaza freely. But in fact, in reality, it is much more complex, and the impact of it is huge on the people of Gaza, which in effect has led to 2 million people living in the closest possible to describe it is an open-air prison, really.
I've heard that description before. What sort of things are allowed into Gaza? And because, of course, there's a whole raft of items that certainly cannot get in, among those goods that could be used for construction. What kind of things actually are allowed into Gaza?
Well, humanitarian aid, but in sort of small doses, is allowed in. Fuel occasionally is allowed in, but it's not consistent. So you can't run electricity consistently across the sector for 24 hours or so on. Some building material is allowed in through the Gaza reconstruction mechanism, which is a complex arrangement. It was introduced by the United Nations as part of the ceasefire arrangement. But even that, the ultimate decision is really for the Israeli Authority. And some, including myself, have written about this, and we suspect that it has been misused by the Israeli authorities to impose even more pressure on Gaza, and particularly on Hamas within Gaza.
And coming back to this group of women who we understand are to be intercepted by the Israeli Navy any time now, it's a very small group of women, about 13 I understand. It's a small boat. They can't be carrying very much, so clearly this is more symbolic than practical.
It is symbolic, but I think it's very important, and the timing of it could not have been better, having come immediately after Israel conceded to Turkey over the Marmara flotilla. As you know, recently Israel paid compensation, they issued an official apology, and they have allowed Turkey special access, humanitarian access to Gaza. Now, the combination of these three concessions is unheard of coming from Israel. Turkey has been able to secure this. Now, this flotilla coming back at this time will draw attention to two important issues. One is the siege and its impact on the communities, but also the fact that Israel can concede and can compromise if the right pressure is applied on it by the international community. And I hope the combination, I mean, if you look at the membership of the flotilla, it has a range of nationalities, all women. There's a co-laureate, peace laureate on the boat. And I think it will draw international attention, and the Israelis will have to be extremely careful when intersecting the boat.
Sultan Barakat, for now, thank you very much indeed. So that's, of course, a story we're going to be keeping across here at Al Jazeera.